to My American Dream, a monthly program of Finlandia Foundation National. During this program series, we are interviewing Finnish entrepreneurs who have come to the U.S. chasing their American dream. Finlandia Foundation is a nonprofit philanthropic organization that was established in Pasadena, California in 1953 for the purpose of supporting and celebrating Finnish American heritage while maintaining ties to contemporary Finland. A major source of private funding for Finnish and Finnish American cultural activities, Finlandia Foundation awards grants and scholarships and sponsors a variety of programs, from concerts to book talks to webinars and online presentations like My American Dream. To finance the production of its programming, Finlandia Foundation relies on private donations. Please visit our website to find out how you can help.
Thank you again for coming. This is My American Dream. My name is Michel Wendell, and I have the pleasure of having with me today Hanna Mikkola, and we are in Los Angeles, close to where Hanna works and does stuff at UCLA. And without further ado, I will introduce to you Hanna. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with setting the scene. Before we come to exactly how we ended up on this floor, but where do you come from? Where did you grow up? What did you do? What's driven you?
So that's a good question. What brings a girl from Varkaus in the middle of Finland to Los Angeles to do blood stem cell research? So my family, we moved to Varkaus right before me and my twin brother were born, and had a very normal childhood there, running around in the bushes and hanging from the trees, and doors were open, and you didn't have to worry about anything, and that was kind of how I learned to grow up. And when we moved to Helsinki when I went to high school, and the question, like, where did this kind of inspiration maybe for medicine or science, when did it start? It was somewhere, I can't remember, was it high school or the 9th grade? There was a biology class where we read 3 chapters: DNA, RNA, and protein. That was just so much more fascinating than squirrels or leaves. And the other thing I think that was always there, that every time when I read about leukemia children, it just kind of stopped me. Why leukemia? Why not something else? I don't know. But it was just something that always, you know, it was frightening. It was scary. I felt I needed to learn more about it. I needed to do something about it. So I think that these experiences took me to med school.
That's interesting. So you can say that passion, in a way, has driven you into this. Passion for doing something to these poor kids that are usually, the pictures we see are, they're bold, they look bleak, they look sick and suffering, and that's very nice. I mean, it's a bad situation, but very nice way to get sort of kicked off in a direction.
Exactly. You know, I feel like if something is scary, you know, to make your enemy to your friend is to get to know it better, and understand it, and maybe it's not so bad, and that's sort of what took me to med school. And I was very firmly committed, like, I'm going to be a hematologist, and I'm going to cure all the leukemias, and I'm going to be the hero, and it's all going to be great. Until I went to med school and we would see the patients, and we suddenly didn't know what was driving their leukemias. We didn't have the right medicines to cure them, and I just felt like so incapacitated. And I guess it was this kind of like, I can't do enough. If I just become a doctor, it's not just a doctor. I really admire the people who do it, but I just felt like I couldn't stand this idea that there's nothing more we can do. So I think that then directed my path toward research.
And so you graduated from Helsinki as an MD. Did you continue your studies there, or did you?
So I started while I was in med school. I was looking for, a research experience, and with this kind of goal that I want to cure leukemia, I called the hematology department and I said, "Do you have a summer job? I would like to cure the leukemia." And they said, "Well, maybe that's not possible right this summer, but we have something that you could be part of, coagulation factor 13 deficiency." And I'm thinking, oh, coagulation cascade, it was the most boring in the biochemistry in med school, but it's blood, so it takes me a little bit closer to my interest. And I started doing it. Was a summer project in med school, and after that there was no decision made. I just started doing it. It just kind of sucked me in, and there was, I don't remember a decision point when I said, now I'm going to do my PhD from this. It just took rolling.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment. I think I had been in the lab for 9 months or something, and we're trying to find the mutations that cause this bleeding disorder. And you sequence this gel, and then you're like, there it is. It's A to G. And now I'm the first one in the world who knows why this patient is bleeding. And it just, that experience changed everything. Wow. Like in school and in med school, I was a good student, but you could only get the top grade or do something worse than that.
Yeah.
But there was nothing more to be achieved. So this is now, you were pushing to an area where nobody had been. And suddenly there was no more failure. It was just a possibility.
Yeah.
And I think that just changed my mindset. And also from this A-plus student that you just had to kind of memorize everything, and memorizing it right, it was just like nobody has been there. There is no right or wrong. You're just going to an area that there's just possibilities.
Wow. That's like space exploration or Jacques Cousteau or one of these things where you're just going into something completely unknown.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I know, and I think that experience really what hooked me. And after that, I finished the med school. I didn't anymore get the A's. My goal was to do the research. I wanted to finish the med school. I really appreciated that education, but I realized that there were perhaps other people who were better in this, front lines, ER. That wasn't what got me going. That kind of got me a little bit paralyzed. Whereas this possibility of maybe we will learn this, maybe we can change this, that just what drew me further. And again, I don't know, was there an actual decision point or it just evolved like that? But after that, it was very clear that I wanted to continue research. And the next step after I had finished my MD and PhD in Helsinki was to look for opportunities abroad.
Yeah, and where did that take you?
Well, when I was going to these scientific meetings and you get to hear these amazing people talk, and then you learn a little bit more about them than just what you read from their papers, I was really fascinated by this one particular scientist, Stuart Orkin in Boston, who was studying the transcription factors that regulated blood development. So it was kind of taking the research to the kind of the center of where the decisions are being made in the cell. So he was studying red cells and platelets, which was now familiar to me from the coagulation, but also some leukemia genes. So it was kind of drawing me to my interest. So I submitted my application and as well as to other places, and I did a little tour for this postdoc visits, and I really liked this Stuart Orkin lab, and Boston was just Harvard and everything. Just sounded like perfect. And I thought the interview went really well, and I was pretty happy. And I emailed him, I want to come here. And he said, actually, we don't have space right now. I can recommend you this young researcher. And I was like, I was naive enough to understand that meant quietly like you were not on top of my list. But I just didn't feel like, why would I go that far to go to a lab that I wasn't so excited about? So I just said to him, what if you put me on a waiting list and I go to Sweden? They had just started a new gene therapy center, stem cell center. So I said, I'm going to go for 1 year to Sweden if you think you have room in 1 year. And that's kind of did this little detour to Sweden. I have to admit that also that was an amazing horse center. And while my childhood friend Pia Pantsu, who is still probably one of, if not the most successful Finnish rider, at least in eventing, was based in Lund. And I said, this could be a fun thing to research there and experience the horse culture in Flyinge. So I went there, and Stuart Orkin said, okay, I can't get rid of this girl. So yes, sure, you can come after you've been at Stefan Karlsson's lab. This will be a good year spent for you. And that's kind of how it went.
Wow. So when you were looking at this specific lab in Harvard or in that Massachusetts, did you sort of have a specific goal to set to really come to the States, or were you just looking for anything, or did you have sort of more of a U.S. focus on it?
So I think that USA was the obvious place to be, where I'd come here to several of these big meetings, American Society of Hematology, and so a lot was happening here. At the same time, it was scary coming from Finland, because everybody said, oh, there are these big labs that they will eat you alive, and you have to hide your notebooks, and it's scary. And but about Stuart Orkin, there was not one person who said a bad, negative word about him. He was this incredible scientist. He still is. I am so in admiration of him. And but everybody just said he's such a good person. You know, he's not necessarily the one who is holding your hand and having parties with you, but just a really solid, good person. And none of these horror stories were coming from there. So I just felt like I want to see how he does it. Like, what is his secret? How can, like, that's, you don't want science to be cutthroat and stealing people's ideas. You want to see that it can be done with very, honorable principles. And that was one of the key things. If I'm going to that big country, it has to be, something that I really, look up to, and something that I can really learn to, not just the science, but also how it can be done at the highest level.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you say that, because we, of course, many of us go through these situations where you have sort of a preconceived notion of a culture or of a group of people, or a company or something, that they are in a certain way, and they might look like that, but then everything is made up of individuals. And it really comes down to people at the end of the day. And as some great philosopher said, nobody is born bad. You may develop to be not so good, but bottom line is that we have the same starting point. So very nice. I certainly know that having a mentor and having somebody to look up to is a huge advantage that you can get for yourself in those kinds of things. So how long did you stay in Boston?
I was there for 5.5 years.
Wow.
And often it's kind of said that if you want to, not just go there for an experience and then bring it, home and continue, that yes, you need that at least 5 years to really finish your postdoc. I think I was also, personally, I didn't feel like I was in a rush, because it was also, I absolutely loved living there, and there was, of course, a lot of other things to experience in Boston, but also part of this was really to make the decision, what is my next step? So is it to return back to maybe Sweden? They left the door very open, say anytime you want to come back, we have a lab for you here. Also in Finland, they were always very open and saying, if you're interested, any time, keep us in touch. So for me, it was also kind of really tuning into what is the next step. And that's when I left to Boston, many people, if they come from somewhere else, they know that they will never return, that their only chance to, I didn't have that. I knew that I had a very firm basis where to return to, and I think that made my life also less stressful, because you could really enjoy the being there, but it's not like I have to all the time look over my shoulder. Am I better than this guy? Which one of us is going to get that job?
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind of matured. I was invited to take interview some jobs in Boston, and I said, wow, maybe I'll stay here. And was looking also in Europe, but at the end of the day, actually, I didn't get those offers. I wasn't offered the jobs I wanted in Boston, and I was a little bit like, it kind of like this. It was already like this dream was already flowing to the next stage. I'm going to have my own lab at Harvard, and I'm going to have my horses at the Myopia Hunt Club, and this is my dream come true. And then it wasn't going that way. So I had to kind of take another look and say, okay, do I want to stay here? I have to start looking more broadly in this country, or will I pack my horse in a container and go back to Europe? I had actually imported the horse in Sweden, somewhere in between there, and of course that made my luggage a little bit heavier. So there's me and my horse, like we're applying for jobs. When I came here to interview at UCLA, and the last slide of my talk was me jumping on my horse, and after that my then chair told me nobody was talking about like, oh, is she any good? Everybody's like, oh my God, she's great. But what do we know about horses? Can we bring a horse here? Is LA good for horses? But it happened to be that interview, there was a snowstorm in Boston, so I was stuck here for 5 days. Yeah. I rented a car, I found a barn for my horse, and it was this, January, and flowers are blooming, and it's all good. And after that, the decision is clear. I want to come here. And but I had to kind of wait to come to that everything just felt like it clicked. I loved the people. I had never thought about California as me. I'm like, well, I'm not the California type. It must mean that you are a bad person if you like good weather. Actually, that's not at all true. And also, living through snowstorm doesn't make you a better person. No. It maybe makes you harder, but it doesn't make you a better person, just that. So I came here and I was I think I'm still a good person even if I live in California. You can have good principles and good ethics and be a good colleague. Exactly. It's not all...
Yeah, you probably have had your lifetime quota of snowstorms already in Finland.
Yes, I think I've done my share.
Yeah, that's funny. So how would you rate, or how do you see the whole educational system and sort of Finland as a basis for something that you do? I mean, you're certainly an outlier, but... and I know that we have some other outliers, but if you look at sort of in terms of Finland is a tiny country and all of that, I mean, do we have the means? Do we have the material? And do we have sort of the national or whatever culture and strategy to produce more Hannas?
So I think we absolutely do. Of course, things are very different now than when I left. So everything has moved forward. What was perhaps missing, if you think about the country as a whole at the time, we didn't have MD, PhD programs. You went to med school, and then that was the route. And if you wanted to do research, you had to do it afterwards, and then you had to do years of clinic. And there was no clear pipeline at that time. But I'm sure now it's different. But at the same time, I had actually an incredible role model, Leena Palotie, Leena Peltonen, whichever way you call her, whichever name she uses, she had amazing research operation there, and I was actually working in her husband Arno Palotie's lab, but Leena was my co-mentor, and Leena was very connected to US and working with all the big genetics shots here. Of course, we had this Finnish, the gene pool, our own little diseases, that was one of our natural resources. But I think that through Leena's research empire, that exposure was like this mindset wasn't like, okay, we're just sitting here like, oh, we're not that good. It's like, no, we can do it. If you need to learn something, you go to a lab and learn it, you come back. And so she opened the doors, and it was very clear, you can go out there, everything is possible, we are no less. I think the education system is amazing, and so there's no reason to think that you can't do it. It's maybe more the mindset, like, well, but I think she broke that
Mold.
mode that get out there and you can do it. So I think that being exposed to her research operation was really a game changer also.
Yeah. Well, we obviously need more Lenas there then, because that is, as a tech investor, I certainly see very much similarities in dealing with these brilliantly smart, engineering, guys and girls that are coming up with great ideas and so forth. But it's usually there is sort of some level of deficiency when it comes to selling and marketing, and then there is just this confidence factor. But then on the other hand, I must say that over the past 15, 20 years, that has developed like a rocket. I mean, it has. We see so many impressive people these days that come from Finland, and they take no prisoners. They are up there with the top echelon. And but still, I mean, we're a small country. We have to be better than average in order to sort of make it. But that's interesting. What would you say some of these people in your sort of line of research and business that are in Finland and so forth? I mean, do you take the position of your Lena with somebody? Are you trying to help people? Are they seeking you out, or are you seeking people out?
So I still have some collaborations in Finland. One amazing scientist, pioneer in his field, Kari Alitalo, the cancer research, angiogenesis research. He's of course he's very accomplished. But we still collaborate with his lab. There are some other labs. Anu Suomalainen is amazing mitochondrial researcher. We've had some collaborations. I think that Finland, exactly my field, hematopoietic stem cells, it wasn't very well represented there for a long time. So I think that people, if we think about postdoc opportunities, they maybe look for kind of the natural thing, what they've been interested, that also then they can work on it if they bring the knowledge back to Finland. So I have actually had more those direct interactions with the Swedish colleagues where I was in Lund. But I think the times are also changing. Like Finland is there are now very strong hematopoiesis, leukemia researchers. Some people actually who I worked with when I was younger, Ulla Vartiovaara, Outi Kilpivaara, and now we are collaborating more. That and I'm very open for any kind of exchanges, and in any way would like to be more involved.
Yeah, that's good, because we, on a broader level, what we have spoken with the embassy and consulates, and of course the consulate here in LA where we are right now, has been just how can we get sort of the Finns that are in this country and have sort of made it in their own way here somehow to sort of really help sort of people in Finland, even because there are still more of those that are a little bit hesitant rather than very forthcoming, and they just need to be pulled out of their shells once, and then they can bloom fully. And so I'm glad to hear that. So you have been gone from Finland for a long time. You feel you look still very Finnish. Do you feel Finnish yourself?
I will always be Finnish, and sometimes people say, "Oh, you have an accent. Would you like me to help you to get rid of your accent?" I'm like, "No way! This is who I am." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm sorry, this is how I come."
Yeah. Plus, it's very hard.
Yes. So accent, I always have. I'm always very Finnish, and like I said, I never left Finland because it wasn't good, or it, and I feel like I have these are both my homes, and and I'm very proud of my heritage. I only have Iittala glasses in my closet, and I used to smuggle the reindeer. Now you can't smuggle the reindeer anymore, but I will bring a lot of salmiakki chocolate, licorice chocolate with me every time when I come. So yes, always be very Finnish and very proud of my heritage and what we represent.
Yeah. How often do you go back to Finland?
I think I would say usually maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
Depends. I even went during COVID last summer. It was one of the best moments of last year. Not the whole lot was happening, but it's wonderful to go to the summer house and feel like you can breathe.
Exactly. And they, of course, were there last summer too, and they had like no clue that there is anything.
No.
but they did really well, so that's of course really good. So what do you do when you go back to Finland? You just hang at your summer house? And
Summer house is usually the first address, and then it's like this cycle. You nap, you eat, you take sauna, you nap more, you eat more, and it's it's usually I go there always at the midsummer time. So I still want to get the kick out of the white nights, which is every time equally amazing.
It is.
You never get tired of it, and that's of course seeing a lot of friends, like the people there, my family, my friends. Yeah, nothing beats seeing them. So in a way, it kind of goes through, like you go through the same motions. The food you want to eat. My father has already prepared the fish roe in a way, and I'm eating with the spoon, and those things that you already kind of, when you sit in the airplane, you think about.
So final interesting little trick question that I often have with people in your position is, and you have a dog and you have a horse. Do you speak Finnish to them?
No, weirdly I don't, and I think it just matters because I never had a horse or a dog in Finland.
Yeah.
So you kind of look into the language that you.
You're context sensitive.
Yeah, exactly. But weirdly, the time when I always have to think in Finnish when I need to think about numbers. If I have to tell my zip code in a phone to an agent, I have to say it out loud in Finnish before I can actually see the numbers. So that's when that Finnish operating system always kicks in.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm so glad that you are here sharing your story and your success with the people out there. I think that you're a great role model for certainly anybody in your field, for any young person, of course, for any young woman out there thinking about the path in this country. It can be done.
Yeah, so get in touch, come visit. LA is actually a wonderful place.
There's lots of wonderful places here.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Hanna, for your time.
Thank you.
And all of the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.